Long ago, the Israelites found themselves facing a terrifying enemy known as the Philistines. The two armies stood on opposite sides of a valley, prepared for battle. Every day, a giant warrior named Goliath would step forward from the Philistine camp and challenge the Israelites. Goliath was enormous, standing over 9 feet tall. He wore heavy bronze armor and carried a massive spear. His appearance alone was enough to fill men with fear. For 40 days, morning and evening, he mocked the army of Israel and challenged them to send a champion to fight him. "If your warrior defeats me, we will serve you," Goliath shouted. "But if I defeat him, you will serve us." The Israelites were terrified. No soldier was brave enough to face the giant. Even King Saul, the leader of Israel, was afraid. At that time, a young shepherd named David was caring for his father's sheep. David was the youngest of 8 brothers, and while his older brothers served in the army, he remained at home tending the flock. One day, David's father sent him to the battlefield with food and supplies for his brothers. As David arrived at the camp, he heard Goliath shouting his challenge once again. He watched as the giant insulted the army of Israel and mocked the living God. David was shocked. He asked the soldiers around him, "Who is this man that he should defy the armies of the living God?" The soldiers explained how dangerous Goliath was and how no one dared to fight him. But David was not afraid. He believed that God would protect his people. Soon word reached King Saul that a young shepherd was willing to face the giant. David was brought before the king. Saul looked at him and said, "You are only a boy, and Goliath has been a warrior all his life." But David answered with confidence, "While caring for my father's sheep, I have fought lions and bears. When they attacked my flock, God gave me the strength to defeat them. The same God who rescued me then will rescue me from this giant." Saul was impressed by David's faith and agreed to let him fight. The king offered his own armor to David. He put the armor on, but it was too heavy and uncomfortable. David removed it because he was not used to wearing it. Instead, he took his shepherd's staff and walked to a nearby stream. There, he picked up 5 smooth stones and placed them in his bag. With only a sling in his hand, he headed toward Goliath. When Goliath saw David approaching, he laughed. He expected a trained warrior, but instead he saw a young shepherd boy. The giant mocked David and shouted insults at him, but David stood his ground. "You come against me with a sword and a spear," David declared, "but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. Today the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and everyone will know that there is a God in Israel." As Goliath moved closer, David ran toward him. He reached into his bag, took out a stone, placed it in his sling, and swung it with all his strength. The stone flew through the air and struck Goliath directly in the forehead. The giant stumbled. Then he fell face down to the ground. The mighty warrior who had terrified an entire nation was defeated by a shepherd boy who trusted in God. The Philistines were stunned. Their champion had fallen. When they saw Goliath lying on the ground, fear filled their hearts and they began to flee. The Israelites charged forward and chased the Philistine army, winning a great victory that day. News of David's courage spread throughout the land. The young shepherd became a hero, not because of his strength or his weapons, but because of his faith in God. The story of David and Goliath remains one of the most powerful lessons in the Bible. It reminds us that no challenge is too great when we place our trust in God. Giants may appear impossible to defeat, but faith can accomplish what human strength never could. And so, the boy who carried only a sling and 5 stones became one of the greatest heroes in biblical history, proving that with God, all things are possible. Long ago,